have you ever sexually molested your daughter, Casey Anthony?
No, sir.
One of the biggest bombshells of the Casey Anthony trial was the defense attorney's declaration that Casey had been sexually molested by her father, George, and her brother, Lee. Now, this claim has not only not been substantiated with any evidence, both claim that this is completely untrue. So my question is, can an attorney simply make such a claim in court, or must they at least make an attempt to prove this? Is this defense strategy a good or real strategy, or just a distraction? Here to take a closer look at the law and this strategy are criminal defense attorney Meg Strickler and Lisa Boeski, here with me in the studio as clinical psychologist, as well as Stacy Honowitz, Florida State prosecutor. She is still with me. Stacy, all right, now tell me, can an attorney, while defending his client, make any claim he wants without any attempt to substantiate it?
Well, I mean, certainly they cannot commit a fraud upon the court. If they've spoken to their client and their client has informed them of this information, this is what they're going to get up and say. Do they have to substantiate it? They don't have to do anything, like I said in the beginning. But the bottom line is, if they want to try to get their client off of the charges, they better be able to back it up somehow. Because like I said earlier, the judge reads an instruction and the judge says, what the lawyers say is not evidence. The only evidence you're allowed to deliberate upon is what comes from that stand through testimony and through other evidence. So the prosecutor has a very precarious position. Can't get up in closing and say, you never heard, you never heard, you never heard from, because he can't comment on the defendant's right to remain silent. But certainly there is a way for a prosecutor to convey to the jury that whatever the lawyer, the only evidence you heard about this is from the lawyer's mouth, and that's the way to really get around it. Let's say they do get Stacy up on the stand. Stacy, is there any way to rehabilitate Casey, rehabilitate her to make her believable on the stand? Because it's going to be her word against everybody. Go ahead. I don't know how you go about doing that. I don't know how you go about doing it. The bottom line is, it has been a series of lies throughout this entire thing. She can get up and say what she wants, and Jose can ask her a million questions, and she can testify in a narrative as to how she was sexually abused. But those jurors are well aware of what's transpired for 31 days, what went on, all the lies that she told her parents, and so I don't know how you really go about rehabilitating a client like that.
All right, so Meg, let me go to you next. Now, Meg, I hope you don't mind me saying that you've shared with us on this program before that you yourself have been a victim of sexual abuse, and that you do believe you're seeing the symptomatology of an abuse survivor here in Casey. What strategy might you use to bring that to the jurors' attention?
Well, to answer what Stacy had said, when I have a case like this, I have a theme of the case from the get-go, and that's what Jose Baez has tried to do from the get-go in his opening statement. Now, generally, one brings that back in after every single witness tries to censure some aspect of my theme in every single witness. I haven't really seen that here, but I'm still hoping that in the defense part of the case, we'll get to hear from opposing experts with respect to the scientific evidence, which isn't very much, thank you, but also hopefully about her mind and what's behind it. And I do think, as I've already said before, that she does absolutely show signs of abuse. How could she not? Look at her. She shows no emotion at all.
Well, help people understand what the implications that is. Because I tell you what, one of the things about some people have been severely victimized is that they bring on further victimization. And so is she bringing that upon herself from all of us? And if so, how do we as viewers understand that?
No, I don't think she's bringing on the victimization. I think that she's so off-kilter from what's happened in the past. Now, remember, the entire family has shown signs of being off-kilter. George, Cindy, and Lee. And might I add, when George was asked, have you ever sexually abused his daughter, all he said was, no, sir. Now, if you had asked me that, I would have said, absolutely not, and I would have screamed to the jury so that they knew. And you notice also the prosecution did not ask that on cross either. So understand, Casey is a mess from a long time ago, and I'm hoping that Jose Baez brings that out as part of what the defense's case is going to be. And that is what one does when they do an opening statement. He does that. He says, you are going to hear, the evidence will show, when you hear my case, this is what transpired, and this is what's going to happen, and this was an accident, and I really fundamentally do not think she's going to be convicted of first-degree murder. No way.
Wow, very interesting. Lisa, do you agree with what Meg's saying?
Well, I gotta say, the chances that she's been sexually abused are actually pretty high. 1 in 4 young girls have been sexually abused. So it's possible that she has been, and oftentimes it's by the father. But even if we find out she has been sexually abused, that doesn't mean she didn't murder little Kaylee. She might not even be related to the case at all. What the defense is doing is actually pretty smart, because they only need one juror who may have some experience with sexual abuse, who might look at Casey and say, you know, I don't know, but
like Meg.
Yes,
so some of the way Meg's looking
exactly.
at it. But let's talk about that for a second, because I know every time I bring up the possibility, again, I want to keep reminding everybody that, like you all at home, I'm just trying to understand this thing. I'm disgusted, I'm angry, I have all the same feelings that you have, but I can be wrong. And I'm, if I'm wrong, I learn something. So let's keep an open mind periodically. Even within our outrage and disgust, we have occasionally go, I wonder if it's possible.
But think about what the defense is trying to do. Not only is George a molester, not only did he molest her, which may or may not be true, but they're also saying that he is basically throwing his daughter under the bus, letting her go on trial toward the death penalty, and he's just sitting back, letting that happen. That when he,
and participated in hiding something in outrageous ways that
he was the one who said, I smell a decomposing body. If he was trying to cover it up, he probably shouldn't be making statements like that. So although he may not be Father of the Year, I think it's going to be hard to convince this jury that he's that much of a monster. But the defense is smart. If there's someone on that jury who has experience with sexual abuse, they may be empathic towards her, and it maybe it will keep her from getting the death penalty.
So you're the mental health professional, you're working for the defense. What are you going to tell the jury that's going to create that doubt?
Oh, to create that doubt, you can say, well, what the research shows is that a lot of women behind bars have been sexually abused, that she has shut down her emotions, that she is numb, that she is under his control, that she is at high risk. We know that some women who have been sexually abused use drugs or alcohol, which we've seen her partying, that they get into trouble with criminal behavior. We know of her forgery and stuff with money.
Okay, so you're going to bring all that, again, more circumstantial stuff. Stacey, what are you going to do with that if a mental health professional gets up and starts casting those sorts of questions?
Really, well, I'd like to know where their data is, where their research is from. I've been prosecuting sexual battery cases for over 20 years. I don't think I've ever had an expert say that this is the type of reaction that their child might die accidentally, and they go off partying and do everything to avoid having to deal with this. I mean, quite frankly, you're going to be hard-pressed to find a medical expert, I think, in the state of Florida that's going to come on and say that all of these are symptomatics of a person who's been sexually abused. And also, I might remind you, there is a letter that she wrote in jail saying that she doesn't know if her father ever, she thinks maybe he might have done something to her, which is a little bit different than Jose Baez getting up in front of a jury and saying that he put his penis in her mouth. Okay, well, that's something you might remember. Then here she's saying, I'm not quite. So
I got it, Stacey, and Lisa's jumping out of her skin
to climb.
Okay, let's see the letter. Let's put the letter up there. It's wrote while she was in prison. This was to a fellow inmate. Here it is. I was to blame for my own brother walking into my room at night and feeling my breast while I was asleep. I was to blame? I think my dad used to do the same thing to me, but when I was much younger, I woke up feeling both sore and sick to my stomach the way I used to feel growing up. Now, Lisa.
Now, again, remember, even if she was sexually abused, and we don't know whether she has or not, she still could have murdered her daughter.
Yeah, I get it.
The two are not connected.
I understand. That's what Stacey's saying. But, Stacey, one last thing before I let you go. I got about 30 seconds here. What is with this sunshine law in the Sunshine State of Florida, which is the reason we're able to look in on all these nefarious aspects of this case? Everything is open to the public in Florida. Is that right? The sunshine law? Really?
Yeah, that's 100%. Yeah, you hear about everything. You're allowed to go in. You can sit in the trial. That's why there's a stampede every day of people wanting to go in. We are fascinated. It's very interesting. People always try to get out of jury duty. You always find the people raising their hand, I don't want to sit. I have news for you. There's people that are dying to sit on juries that want to sit on a case like this. It's fascinating, it's interesting, and it's real-life dysfunction of what you see, and it's criminal, so it's interesting.
We tend to keep that stuff confidential usually in my world, but thank you, Stacey Honowitz, thank you, Meg, and of course, thank you, Lisa, you'll be staying with us. Coming up, the cult of Casey. Some say she's playing to the cameras. I'm asking, what's her relationship with the media and her fame? And we're also going to hear from my jury later in the show.
On this